Today, we are going to take a journey through a whole century of change for women in the workforce. It's this huge story of massive societal shifts, really tough modern dilemmas, and the incredible power of just one person's fight for justice. So let's get right into it.
So let me start by asking you a question that honestly sounds completely absurd today. Could you be fired just for getting married? I mean, for us, that's just wild to even think about. But for our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers, this wasn't some hypothetical question. It was a very real thing that shaped their entire lives.
And the difference between then and now, it's just stark. 100 years ago, these things called marriage bars were pretty common. They were actual policies that forced women, especially if you were a teacher or a clerk, out of your job the second you said "I do." The whole idea was that a career was just a placeholder, something to do before your real life as a wife started. Fast forward to today, and dual career families are totally the norm. So how on earth did we get from there to here? Let's unpack it. Okay, so let's really break down just how massive this transformation has been. We're going to look at 4 key areas. First up, legal rights. And it's easy to just think about voting, but wow, it went so much deeper than that. 100 years ago, in a lot of places, a woman couldn't even sign a contract by herself. If you got pregnant, that often meant you were out of a job immediately with absolutely no legal protection. Today, there's a whole framework of anti-discrimination laws and full civic rights that has just completely changed the game. And it's no surprise that those limited rights were reflected in the kinds of jobs that were available. Back then, your career options were incredibly narrow. We're talking domestic service, factory work, maybe teaching, or a clerical job. The work was often manual, repetitive. You compare that to today, where the doors are open to literally every sector you can imagine, from coding and STEM to running huge corporations. So what about the conditions in those jobs? Well, just picture long, grueling hours, 10, maybe 12 a day, with almost no thought for safety. And crucially, a woman's wage was seen as supplementary income, just a little extra cash for the house. And that idea was the perfect excuse to pay them way less than men. Now, pay gaps absolutely still exist, but at least today we have laws designed to regulate hours, ensure safety, and fight for equal pay. And finally, here's the thing. None of this progress would have been possible without one key piece of the puzzle: education. A century ago, higher education was basically a men's club. Professions like law and medicine were almost completely walled off. Today, women not only have broad access to every level of education, but in many countries they now earn more university degrees than men. That creates a powerful pipeline for professional advancement that just didn't exist before. But here's the twist. All of this hard-won progress has created a whole new set of really complex, really personal challenges. So let's shift gears from that big historical picture to a very modern dilemma, one that in a lot of ways is a direct result of all that progress. The choice many mothers now face between having a career and staying at home. Okay, so the first trade-off is often the most obvious one: money. Having a job means earning your own income. It gives you economic autonomy, real financial independence. On the flip side, being a stay-at-home mom often means you're relying entirely on a partner's income, and that can create a real sense of vulnerability, especially if a relationship ends. It's a fundamental difference in financial security. And then you have to talk about stress. Because let's be real, neither path is a walk in the park. Working mothers often talk about this thing called role overload, that feeling of constantly juggling work deadlines and family duties. But stay-at-home moms face a totally different kind of pressure. It's continuous, it's unstructured, there's very little time off, and it can be incredibly isolating. The stress looks different, but believe me, it is very real on both sides. And all of this extends to something deeper, right? To your personal identity. Maintaining a career can give you a sense of purpose and a professional identity that's separate from being a mother. On the other hand, there is immense fulfillment in nurturing children, but it can come with the risk of your professional skills getting rusty, which makes it really challenging if you decide you want to get back into the workforce later on. So, at the end of the day, there is no single right choice. It's a deeply personal decision, and everyone is weighing a completely unique mix of financial needs, goals for personal fulfillment, and their own emotional well-being. Now, we've been talking about these big, broad societal choices, but sometimes the biggest changes don't come from a trend, they come from one person's fight. So let's zoom in on the story of one woman whose personal battle against injustice had a ripple effect that literally changed the law for everyone. Meet Lilly Ledbetter.
For almost 20 years, she worked as a supervisor at a Goodyear tire plant. And then, pretty late in her career, she gets this anonymous note. And that note revealed a secret about her pay that was absolutely shocking.
The note revealed that for years, she had been paid up to 40% less than her male colleagues for doing the exact same job. 40%. Just let that sink in for a minute. After decades of doing the same work, she had earned dramatically less money.
So she fought back. She sued Goodyear for sex discrimination, and she actually won at first. But then her victory was overturned. The Supreme Court said she missed the 180-day deadline to file her complaint. But here's the totally impossible catch. The clock started ticking with her first unfair paycheck, years and years earlier. I mean, how could she meet a deadline for something she didn't even know was happening? Her case basically exposed this massive, absurd flaw in the law. And the result of her fight was the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. And the crucial change was this. It says the 180-day filing clock resets with every single new unfair paycheck. This was a game changer. It gives workers a realistic chance to actually seek justice when they discover they're being underpaid, just like Lilly did.
So, after this whole journey, through 100 years of history, through modern choices, through one woman's incredible fight, what's the big picture? Where exactly do we stand today?
Well, when you pull it all together, a few things become really clear. The progress over the last century has been nothing short of revolutionary. But that progress didn't make the challenges disappear. It just created new, more complex ones. Systemic issues like the gender pay gap are unfortunately still with us. And as Lilly Ledbetter's story proves, the fight for equality isn't just some dusty chapter in a history book. It's an ongoing, personal battle that's being fought every single day. And that leaves us with one final, really important thought. The progress we've just talked about, it wasn't inevitable. It was fought for, tooth and nail. And there's no guarantee it will just continue on its own. So the question for all of us is, what's the next fight for workplace equality going to look like?